What's up, guys? Texans fan in rehab here. And listen, it's been a great week. A lot of big news has been coming through. As you can see on the thumbnail, we got some good news that's coming through. Possibly some little rumors that are being spread around in the Carolina Panthers back offices or whatnot. The news is that basically Bryce Young is looking like the #1 pick for these guys. So what that spells for the Texans is the fact that CJ Stroud is definitely looking like a strong possibility that he's going to be drafted by the Houston Texans. And I know that's kind of weird, definitely, possibly, all of that stuff. But listen, it's good news either way, especially for a guy like myself who's been touting CJ Stroud from the beginning. Again, nothing against Bryce Young, but just the fact that, you know, the Texans have an opportunity to get a guy who's going to be ready-made, strong in his offense, strong in his talents, all of that stuff, and be able to come out on the field and there's no concerns about whether or not he be a damaged product or something like that. Again, as my concern, as I've mentioned many times before with Bryce Young. So look, I'm looking forward to the opportunity that the Texans gonna draft #2, that they're gonna stand pat and hold firm with what they gotta do, pick the guy that's available at the spot that they're gonna be in. Whether this news is solidified or it's not, I think that it's real. I think that Bryce Young is gonna be the #1 draft pick by the Carolina Panthers, and then we're gonna be sitting at #2 waiting on our guy, and it's a guy that's gonna lead us for the next, 5 to 10 years into the future of where we're gonna be as an organization. Now, here I go with we again. But listen, for those that don't like CJ Stroud, I'm telling you, man, the sky is not falling. Don't panic. It's gonna be okay. I heard some guys in conversations this week that were literally just talking like CJ Stroud was gonna be the worst thing ever. Like, if we didn't draft Bryce Young with the #1 pick, the whole draft is a wash. And I'm gonna tell you something. I've done this long enough. I've watched these drafts long enough to know that that is never the case. You're gonna have some guys that's gonna be at the top of the draft, and they're gonna be excellent prospects, and they're gonna do their thing for whatever team that they draft, and they might be perfect fits. You're gonna have guys that'll be terrible fits for the teams that they go with or they get drafted by, and then you're gonna have some guys that are just later round draft picks that are gonna outperform whatever they're gonna do. And listen, it's not like the Texans haven't, nailed it on every single draft pick. I mean, they've done a pretty bang up job with some of their draft picks over the years. But needless to say, that's why we're here, right? That's why we're drafting #2 in the first place, because they, haven't really proven that they can sustain and coach a lot of these guys up to where they need to be. So hopefully this is the turning point for the franchise. New regime in place. Hopefully this is the tide for the no pun intended, roll tide. Hopefully this is the spot in the history of the organization where we can transition into or back into being the type of team that we need to be, where we're perennial playoff attenders, contenders against the rest of the league, and we can see what we can put together that might have some longevity, not just longevity, but major success. Hopefully, the goal is to win, as my boy Herm Edwards used to say. The goal is to win the games and to get to be the champion for the end of the season. So hopefully we can go ahead and get that accomplished with where we're going right now. Now, I've also seen some stuff this week that said that I don't really do mock drafts, but boring week, not a whole lot going on as far as content and whatnot. And so I also saw some stuff that was put out as far as mock drafts that had the Texans doing some really inefficient things and outlandish type of moves. For example, Lance Zierlein had one draft mock that had us taking the defensive end out of Texas Tech as the #2 pick, which to me just seems like an inefficient move. I think what his goal with that was to also have the Texans trade back up for the second pick. Instead of the 12th slot, we traded up to the seventh slot, and we picked up Will Levis. Now, I've been very vocal about this whole thing about Will Levis. It's not that it's a personal attack on Will Levis. It's more so to the fact that there is a machine that's being pushed out here, and I'm not buying it, man. Like, again, I understand Will Levis played Kentucky. I understand he balled out from time to time, but when you have the number of guys that are available to be picked and the quality of those guys, and you can see with your own eyes what type of guys these are, whether that's Bryce Young, whether that's C.J. Stroud, or even Anthony Richardson. You see these guys and their talent, and their athletic ability, their skill sets, and you see what's available to them. I don't see what Will Levis brings to the table that's sufficiently better than any one of those three guys. Not to say that he can't be at the table. He's certainly at the table, but I don't see what he brings to the table that's sufficiently better than any of those three guys to the point where he would rise or overtake what those guys have accomplished. So, hey, give me some feedback in the comment section, man. I would love to hear your side of the story. Maybe you have a difference of opinion. I'll chop it up with you. That's not a problem. But, I really feel like there's a machine that's pushing this Will Levis program right now, and it's just not sitting right with my soul, man. Like, I get it. There's some teams that's going to want a guy like Will Levis or whatever for whatever reason. But when you have these guys like C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young that's sitting out there, why would you not take those guys and go for a guy like Will Levis and his pedigree and his resume, what he has already on deck? So, just my 2 cents on the matter. Not that anything that I say is important at all. I'm just a guy on YouTube. But I think C.J. Stroud is going to be the pick for us, just to kind of consolidate that point. I think that Will Levis is just a smokescreen for anybody else that might be out there. I don't want people to start sweating over C.J. Stroud, man. I think that, he's a very accurate quarterback. He's got a very smooth delivery. He knows, the game plan. He adapts to the game plan well. I've heard a lot of things this week also that, people are saying that, hey, man, he went to Ohio State. You see what kind of quarterbacks come out of there. They had Justin Fields, of course, he's performing in the league. They've had several other quarterbacks that come out of the league prior. Won't have to name all of those guys. But the school does not dictate the player. I'll repeat, the school and who they are and the players that they've acquired does not dictate the player as he goes and transitions into the league. It's more so a natural fit with the team that he's with the offensive coordinator or even the head coach that are going to dictate a lot of those things. And then, of course, within the player himself, his will and his acumen and what he desires to accomplish as his own personal goals are going to determine that. So I hear that a lot, but, there's one particular school that also doesn't have the greatest track record when it comes to quarterbacks and the hype that they've had at their college school. At their college, and how that translates into the pros. And I'm trying to figure out which team that is. I think it's Alabama with the Roll Tide. I mean, they've had plenty of quarterbacks that have been hyped, Heisman qualifiers and finalists and all of that stuff, and where they at, right? Like, I mean, it's not just the Ohio State thing. It's not just the Alabama thing. It's more schools than that have had these guys that have come in rotation. And you got to remember, like, college is a 4-year opportunity for a lot of these guys. So, sometimes they get 4, sometimes they get less or whatever. These guys are just rotational players in those type of systems and those type of offenses. So, they're trying to strike while the iron is hot in a lot of these situations with these schools. And so that does not become the predictor for what you're going to have in the pros. I mean, you got, again, a tight window in college, a much bigger, broader opportunity once you get to the pros. But the difference is you got, different set of influences. You got a different set of plans and stuff, and opportunities just look different in the pros. It's just the reality of the situation. So, I don't take anything as far as what school these guys come from. I mean, shoot, Cam Newton came out of 2 major colleges, and he also, took a swing past Blinn College for a little while too. It's not a predictor for who you're going to be when you become a pro. They sit there and say that Lamar Jackson coming out of Louisville is not the pro that they desire him, and he's MVP level quarterback. Joe Burrow, LSU has had a number of quarterbacks to come and not be as successful as he has. I mean, it's just, it's no rhyme or reason to a lot of this stuff. But if the guys got it in here, then it's going to show out there on that field, man. And so I don't take anything lightly with what these guys are out here trying to do. Professional game is much respected, And if they can take that next step to go from the college level and take their game up to another level, man, these guys have the opportunity to not only be franchise players, historic players, Hall of Fame players, but lead a legacy that many people desire to have moving forward. So, hey, I'm not gonna really belabor the point on that too much. I'm just gonna pretty much keep it short this week. We have the draft that's gonna be coming up in a couple weeks. I know everybody's dying. We're all dying to get to that draft because I'm tired of just listening to everybody else talk about it. I'd rather just get to the draft, know who we have on our teams, and then just start chopping it up about the players that we have drafted. That's why, again, I don't really get too deep off into who we have as far as the next 17 picks. I mean, I know the Texans got a lot of picks or whatever coming into the draft, but why do we need to have to, we don't really have to break down a whole lot of that stuff other than just to kill time before the draft. So I'm only keeping it 1 day a week up until we get to that point. Then once we get to that point, I'll probably amp it up a little bit more. But listen, I'm going to keep it short this week. Again, Texans fan in rehab. Can't wait to see what you guys have. Like, subscribe, follow, chop it up with me, comment in the sections, all of that stuff, man. Hope to hear from y'all soon, man. Appreciate the 40 people that we got that subscribed, and I look forward to many more, man. Till next time.